Don't sir me, young man. You have no idea who you're dealing with.
Hello. So, today we're going to piggyback off of my last Caleb and Sophia video with lesson number 44 titled, Don't Give Up. And I'm certain this has to be referring to family members who maybe fall short of Jehovah's expectations, brothers and sisters, the ones you're not actually related to, in the congregation, who may be slipping, who may be inactive, or may have fallen away from Jehovah altogether. Don't give up. I mean, what else could they be possibly talking about, right?
Let's do it.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I have a great video about God's promise for the earth.
Oh, sweetheart, thank you. I'm not interested.
While I'm even baffled by this, it's very possible that I might be wrong. It's certainly not something I've experienced much of, obviously, because I have a vagina. How many of you here, by a show of hands, already knew that the Don't Give Up was in reference to going door to door?
And you can read the Bible and watch videos.
Really busy, kid.
Yep, so this 100% plays into what we call the persecution complex. Jehovah's Witnesses feel that they are persecuted in the name of Jehovah more than every other belief system because they do have the one true religion. I'd say explain the Holocaust to them, but they've already stolen a slice of that pie. It's very true. If anything happens, whether someone doesn't get a job promotion, maybe doesn't get the best grade on an assignment, it's not because they fell short. They expect to be persecuted. Or if they're deemed dangerous to the rest of society and therefore are banned, they expect people to come after them. They expect the doors to be slammed in their face. Snide remarks, dozens of urban legends about guns being pulled out. Some people kind of get pissed off when you keep interrupting their Saturday morning cartoons. I know I would. So in last week's video, we saw Caleb preparing to go door to door out in service. And this week, we're going to talk about perseverance. Perseverance? Persevere? Stand strong against those doors being slammed in your face. And listen, I'm not saying that we should crumble in the face of adversity. My own kids were raised with the mantra, Goonies never say die. Let's see what Caleb and Sophia are taught.
Can we take a break? Yeah.
A break already?
Okay, so I don't know how much time they typically spend out in service. Our minimum was an hour, but my mom always had return visits. It was not uncommon for us to go on Saturdays, occasionally on Sundays after the meetings. I hated service. I hated service beyond the being put on the spot and having to speak to strangers. If they're in a white van, no. Unless you're in an RV park, then yes. But make sure Jehovah's Witness is with you, preferably a grown one, who may also be a pedophile. So yes, we're encouraged very much to talk to strangers. And while I do believe that this can do very well for some people when it comes to public speaking or having that foundation of thinking on your feet and knowing what to say, I never got that. Hated it even as an adult. I have spent decades trying to get over that fear of public speaking, and it's still there. Public fornicating, on the other hand, not a problem. But I hated it because by the time we got out of a meeting, which I believe was like noon, and then you have your visiting after the meeting, and then you have your little quick field service meeting, which is what you do before you go out in service, when they kind of delegate the territories and everything, who's going to work where, and get partnered up. If you haven't picked a partner already, and be careful, young ones. If you pick that same partner who happens to be the opposite gender of you, they're going to catch on. But anyhow, by the time we're out in the ministry, it's 1 o'clock. Now, where I grew up during the summer, when of course we had school vacation, which means we went out in service more often, It hit 130 degrees by the end of August where I grew up. Layers of clothes, nylons or stockings, leotards for little children. But even if you're just wearing socks and sandals, which is a horrible fucking look by the way, please don't. It's hot. And you park on this side of the street and you hit all the houses going up this way for however long. And then all the houses coming down this way. You're pouring with sweat. You can't bring any water with you. Drink your spit. And it's just incredibly unpleasant. And considering you don't really have that much time off just to be able to go home, take off your meeting clothes, change into your summer clothes, and try to have as much fun as possible. My parents use this time to have sex Sundays after meetings. I mean, I didn't see it, but my sister heard it because she would put a glass up to the wall. It just was just another weight, and it was so hot and so miserable. God, I hated it so much. And I'm just a girl. Men wear suits. However, on the upside, one of my favorite parts was after we went out in service, we would go to this store called Bash's', but it was called something different at the time. It was a grocery store, but it had a little nook dining area, and we would sit down and get a refreshing drink, and I was allowed to get the extra large pink lemonade, and they had the crushed, like the Hawaiian ice, and fill it all the way to the top and I think it was $0.25, and I would sit there with the other brothers and sisters and having my delicious lemonade and feeling so mature. That was my highlight. That was my reward. But in truth, I mean, let's be honest, the real reward is everlasting life. So yes, you're taught very, very early on to expect to be persecuted, expect to have doors slammed in your face, expect for people to say no. This is the norm. Now, if you look at how young Caleb is, and he's been this age for a long time, so let's say they started at 3, they do start early, that this is the expectation. People do not like you. And on a psychological level, that builds up even more so that the people who do like you, other people in the congregation, other Jehovah's Witnesses, you grip onto, wow, these people are wonderful and nice, and these people are going to be mean to me. And every time somebody makes fun of you, every time you don't get called on for something, it's probably because you're a Jehovah's Witness. This is so drilled into you that our parents used to find out ahead of time who your school teacher would be for the next year so they could investigate whether or not they were tolerant of Jehovah's Witness kids. Or if they were against the witnesses, which was wonderful to spend your summers working up to what was going to be like to spend 9 months with somebody who hated your guts before they even met you.
Can we take a break?
Yeah.
A break already?
A break might be nice, but before we go...
A break might be nice, but instead of validating your feelings and maybe loosening the reins a little bit, I want to layer on some of that Jesus guilt for you.
Do you remember when Jesus preached? Did everybody listen to him?
I'm not saying I'm psychic or anything, but you saw it here.
No.
So, why didn't Jesus give up?
I understand that a lot of Christians have Jesus as that example of what you want to strive to be. But to tell a kid who likely still eats his boogers that his measure is up here, what are you thinking? Not to mention that as you go further down that path, we all know how it ends up for Jesus. So do the little children need to be prepared to have like nails driven through their hands and a spear shoved into their side, beaten for a day or so, left to suffer, and all with a smile on his heart? Well, yeah, the answer is actually yes. Yes, if it happened to Jesus, it can happen to you. And then the training begins of how you're going to prepare to handle those torture situations. So, yes, what would Jesus do?
Why didn't Jesus give up?
Because he wanted everyone to hear the good news.
So you want to take a break, which means you don't want everyone to hear the good news.
A break already?
So, how about we each try another house?
'Cause if Jesus can do it, gosh darn it.
Bet your ass this little enemy of God can too. My worst fear.
Oh, hi, Chuck.
That is not what happened, actually. As soon as that kid poked his head out the window, Caleb shit himself. It probably should have let him take that break. Again, I cannot stress enough that it's so important for all of our children. I've raised 4, or 4 have survived me. And of course, I want them to learn how to overcome adversity. Of course, I want them to learn that Goonies never say die. But to constantly pump it into the heads of these little kids, the little 3 and 4-year-olds all the way up to God, I don't know. I'd like to say maybe 10, but there's probably some solid 16-year-olds out there still watching these. To constantly pump it into their head since birth, these weird, unattainable expectations, and what a failure you are if you can't do something just as simple as what Jesus did. And how hard is it? I'm waiting for the video where these guys are put to the test, and if they can turn water into wine, magically have a bunch of fish appear. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. Trying to get better at putting out videos more frequently, as I'm a slacker, which is why I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, among other things. So I will talk to you soon. I would love to hear some of your experiences going door to door, child or not. And until then, I will see you next time.